المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قال: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله. فقلت: نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب هودي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسين عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله. فقلت: نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جدة. السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت: السلام عليك يا أبتا يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلا تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأمي بيده يمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي. يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن آداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدهيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبتي هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساب. فقال الأمين جبريل: يا ربي ومن تحت الكساب؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعين رسالتهم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبريل: يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم قد أذنت لن. فهبط الأمين جبريل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم. فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وحلا. إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبريل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لي أبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعاتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله: يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعاتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محمومان إلا وفرج الله حما ولا مغمومان إلا وكشف الله غما ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
अब आंखें खोल दो अकबर सिरहाने आ गया बाबा। अब आंखें खोल दो अकबर सिरहाने आ गया बाबा। ज़ईफ़ी में जवान लाशा ज़ईफ़ी में जवान लाशा उठाने आ गया बाबा। अब आंखें खोल दो अकबर सिरहाने आ गया बाबा। گزر جائیں گے ہم سے امتحان سے یا علی کہہ کر نکل جائے گی یہ برچی نہ گھبرا نہ میرے دل بر تمہارا ہاتھ سینے سے تمہارا ہاتھ سینے سے ہٹانے آ گیا بابا اب آنکھیں کھول دو اکبر سہانے آ گیا بابا انہوں نے کیا سمجھ رکھا تھا اکبر بے سہارا ہے اشارے سے بتا دو کس نے تم کو مارا ہے الٹ کر آستی محشر الٹ کر آستی محشر اٹھانے آ گیا بابا اب آنکھیں کھول دو اکبر سرہانے آ گیا بابا چلی آئی تھی یاد راستے تک ثانیہ زہرا بڑی مشکل سے بھیجا ہے قسم دے کر تیری بیٹا بہن کیسے تڑپتی ہے بہن کیسے تڑپتی ہے بتانے آ گیا بابا اب آنکھیں کھول دو اکبر سرہانے آ گیا بابا نظر آ جائے گا تم کو بہن ہے اب کہاں بیٹا اٹھو دیکھو ہماری انگلیوں کے درمیان بیٹا تمہیں صغرا کی تنہائی تمہیں صغرا کی تنہائی دکھانے آ گیا بابا اب آنکھیں کھول دو اکبر سرہانے آ گیا بابا ضعیفی میں جوان لاشا ضعیفی میں جوان لاشا اٹھانے آ گیا بابا اب آنکھیں کھول دو اکبر سرہانے آ گیا بابا
آواز بلند صلوات Assalamualaikum. Just a couple announcements from the management. Please join the membership. It comes in two different parts: a funeral service, which has a mandatory pledge form, and a regular membership. Please sponsor the Majlis, the English one inside and the Urdu one outside. And please join the Babylon youth group. You can find the link in our bio for a general member. And lastly, please join the Sunday School year Bakalum Academy. And now, Tawazibun Salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. Respected sisters, dearest brothers in Iman and Wilayah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to mawadda of the Ahlul Bayt. When the people had asked Rasulullah if there's anything that they can do in recompensation for Risala, what's known as the ajr of Risala, is there anything that we can give you to repay you for all of the various responsibilities that you carried out, the burdens that were on your shoulders? You came and you undertook this grand task for us. Is there any way that we can pay you back? And Rasulullah time and time again never took any price and never took any gift and never took any sort of recompensation for Risala, up until this ayah was revealed that Qul, say, Ya Rasulullah, tell them, La as'alukum alayhi ajran. I'm not asking you for anything in return. There's nothing that I want from you. La as'alukum alayhi ajran. There's one thing that I'm asking of you, and it's not for me, but rather it's for you. And that one thing that I want for yourselves is the mawadda of my family, which we typically translate to be, O people, in return for what the Prophet has done to you, love his family. There's a series of questions that we need to ask on our Valentine's night. The night of love, the night of loyalty, the night of allegiance, the night of connection to our Imam, the night of Wilayah is the night of Ashura. For us, tonight is the night of the 15th of Sha'ban. For us, tonight is the night of Qadr, the night of Ashura, is the night that we become one with the Imam of our time if we weren't so before. And so there's a series of questions that we need to answer tonight. Question number one, what does mawadda mean when Rasulullah says that I only ask of you mawadda? Number two, how many beloveds can a human being truly have? Number three, what is the condition to loving the Ahlul Bayt? And number four, how is it that we can rid our societies of the love of other than Allah and the Ahlul Bayt today? But before that, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Al-mawadda means that you rid your heart of anything and everything except your beloved. When you have mawadda for someone, mawadda is other than mahabba. Mawadda here is singular, meaning there's a singular focus. There is a razor sharp, laser focus on that one beloved that you have. And therefore, you have removed the love of all other than this beloved from your hearts. How much do you love this beloved? Well, it's everything for you. Everything is this beloved. And therefore, another difference between mawadda and mahabba is that while hub might be expressed verbally or it may remain in your heart, mawadda is necessarily expressed in your action. When you love a thing and you make it the focus and attention of your life, when you give it your all, when this is that focal point that you're working towards, this is the pinnacle and the summit of the mountain that you are climbing, then we will see in your actions the devotion that you have towards this beloved. And so mawadda means that you've ignored everything else and you're going towards this one beloved, and you're showing it in your action, that you seek your beloved, you're chasing your beloved. one of the meanings of ziyarah is that you have turned away from everything else so you can focus on the mazur, on the one that you've gone to do ziyarah of. And so when I go to Karbala, I'm saying I've left all my baggage behind. I've left everything behind me so I can focus on Hussain. When I go to Karbala for ziyarah, I'm saying I'm not focused on anything else. I'm not even focused on the dari. I'm not even focused on his holy qubbah. That in the ziyarat nahiya, the nahiya muqaddasa sahibu zaman alayhi salam says that Ya manil ijabatu tahta qubbatih. Oh, the one who the answer to prayers and needs and wants are answered where? Under his dome. I don't even have attention on his dome, not on his dari. Everything else has been put to the side. Have you seen blinders on a horse? Razor focus looking forward. At whom? At my beloved himself. And so ziyarah, similar to mawadda, means that the love of everything else, attention on anything else, the importance that anything else has all diminished in my eyes. And my focus is simply and only on that beloved of mine. So what has Allah commanded Rasulullah to say? He says, you want to pay me back for Risala, there's one thing you can do, and that is put your attention of everything else that you focused on, all of that, remove it from your lives, and focus on one thing and one thing alone. إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. Love my Ahlul Bayt. How love my Ahlul Bayt? That anything that comes in contradiction with my Ahlul Bayt, any action that is not liked by my Ahlul Bayt, anything that puts you out of the line of the Ahlul Bayt, that action, that lifestyle, that decision, that sentence is not in the vocabulary, nor is it in the lifestyle of the lover of Muhammad and al-Muhammad. The one who has mawadda is the one that puts everything to the side except Muhammad and al-Muhammad. And this is what mawadda is in this verse. But our second question was, what if I have mawadda for the Ahlul Bayt and also for other than the Ahlul Bayt? Why does it have to be mutually exclusive? Why is it that you're making it seem as if I can't love other things? Can I not like hamburgers, and can I not like pizza? Can I not love my parents? Can I not love my spouse? Can I not love sleep? Can I not love video games? Can I not love technically other than the A'immah, other than the Ma'asumin? Is this not possible? In the riwayah, our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi, he says that al-qalbu haramullah, the heart is the sanctuary of Allah. فَلَا تُسْكِنْ حَرَمَ اللَّهِ غَيْرَ اللَّهِ. Therefore, if Allah is the one that resides in His sanctuary, then don't allow anyone else into His sanctuary other than Him. Which means if your heart is the place where the Lord resides, then no one else can reside therein next to Him other than Himself. Why? Because when Allah fills a vessel, it's filled to the brim. There's no room for other than Him. And therefore, if someone else is already occupying space inside that vessel, then there can be no room for God to enter. And so can a man have more than one beloved? We say it's not possible. If one of those beloveds is going to be Allah, and the Ahlul Bayt were on that vertical chain of the love of Allah, anything connected to Allah therefore is part of this chain. Anything not on that chain now, if it enters your heart, it throws everything on the chain of the love of Allah outside of your heart. On the night of Ashura, when we're coming to recalibrate and reorient our focus to make sure we're facing the right direction, so when we wake up on the morning of Ashura, we're on the right side of history, we need to check ourselves. How many beloveds do we have? Is it the case that we love other than Allah? In mawadda, it's necessary that I don't love other than Allah. Which leads us to our third question, which was that we have already accepted that the love of the Ahlul Bayt is constant and definite, for sure. What's the preliminary and the condition for reaching that? Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam saw one of his great companions named Safwan. Safwan had camels. His whole job was to rent out his camels. That's why they called him Safwan Jamal. Jamal from Jamal means the one who rents out his camel. He's got a lot of camels. Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam comes to Safwan and he says, Safwan, I love everything about you. I love you, man. You're great. It's one thing I don't like. He says, Ya Ibn Rasulillah, Sayyidi, Mawlai, what is it that I am doing that displeases you, that you don't like about me? What is it about my character? What blemish is there? You said you love everything. What's the one thing that's missing? This is a sign of a Shia. He's not complacent. He doesn't just say, I'm already 99, who needs 100? He says, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, O Imam of my time, if there's one thing that's displeasing you, that bothers me, I need to remove that. I don't have any pet sins. I don't take hostages when it comes to shaitan and his actions and the things that he likes. Allow for all of it to be removed from me. Ya Ibn al-Zahra, tell me this. What is the one thing that I'm doing that's displeasing you? The Imam alayhi salam says, Safwan, I heard that you rented out your camels to Harun. Ya Ibn Rasulullah, allow me to explain. This one's an easy one. You see, the Caliph was taking a caravan for Hajj. And so when he was going to the Kaaba, to the house of God, he needed camels for his caravan. And so I had camels and I rented it to him. Simple as that. It's ibadah. Perhaps he was thinking, I will be sharik, I'll be a partner in the thawab of this Hajj. Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam asks one question. He says, Safwan, would you like Harun to come back from his Hajj alive so that he can give you his payment? He says, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, of course. Look, no shade to you. I'm not trying to say anything about him or you, but look, at the end of the day, I need Harun to come back alive so that he can pay me the rest of the amount that he hasn't paid. This is how it works. You pay one portion first, and then you pay the rest when you come back with the camels. Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam says, just the fact that you want the goodness of Harun, there is your problem. In other words, repay your allegiance back to me. In your heart, you have a little tiny glimmer of hope that Harun comes back alive, and therefore you are praying for the life and the baqa of my enemy. You having even this smidget of love for the enemy of the Imam, this doesn't fly with me, Safwan. It's not possible that in your heart you have the love of the Imam and the love of his enemy as well. This is why our belief is on the basis of one sentence, أَنِعْبُدُ اللَّهِ وَاجْتَنِبُ الطَّاغُوتِ, that I obey Allah only, and I disassociate from, and I condemn, and I curse, and I expose all of the enemies of Allah, whoever they are, wherever they are. It's not possible for me to love them both. They're 180 degrees in opposition to one another. One final topic before we close out our series that requires tabyin is this. That is it possible, now that I live in the West, I live here, born and bred, that I can love this place and I love its rulers and I love the society and I love what they teach me in the schools and the institutions and I love my job and I love my dollars. Can I? The riwayah says that أَوْحَى اللَّهُ إِلَىٰ نَبِيٍّ مِّنَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ قُلْ لِقَوْمِكَ. The hadith says that Allah inspired one of the prophets from amongst the Anbiya to say this, and قُلْ لِقَوْمِكَ, say to your people, لَا تَلْبَسُوا لِبَاسَ أَعْدَائِي وَلَا تُطْعِمُوا مَطَاعِمَ أَعْدَائِي وَلَا تُشَاكِلُوا كَمَا شَاكَلَ أَعْدَائِي فَتَكُونُوا أَعْدَائِي كَمَا هُمْ أَعْدَائِي. The hadith says, tell your people, don't dress the way my enemies dress, and don't eat that which my enemies eat, and don't act and make yourselves resemble the way my enemies look and act, because if you do, then you will be my enemy the way they are my enemies. You cannot both say that I love Sahibul Zaman and I love the enemies of Sahibul Zaman. Is it possible for someone to say Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi and then Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anh? Can someone say Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam and Muawiyah radiyallahu anh? If you were to ask Abu Sufyan, who is your enemy, he'll say Rasulullah. How is it that you're praising them both? If you ask Muawiyah, who is your enemy, he'll say Amirul Mu'mineen. So how are you praising them both? If you ask Imam al-Mujtaba, who is your enemy? Ask Abu Abdullah, who is your enemy? There is someone that is in complete 180 degrees opposition to the Imam, and someone in 180 degrees opposition to that individual. So they don't come together. And so, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, when you have enemies in this day and age, because for every imam of belief, there's an imam of disbelief in opposition to him. Ya Sahib al-Zaman, tonight I've come to say that I'm not friends with your enemies. Who are those individuals that today we consider to be the enemies of Islam? And who are those individuals today that we consider to be the flag bearers of the Imam of my time? If we don't answer these questions tonight on the night of Ashura, what are we expecting to receive tomorrow? That tonight is a night of repaying and renewing the allegiance to the Imam of our time, and we're speaking about historical figures. Today, do I have love in my heart for the Yazid of my era? Because I obviously don't love any of these khulafa from Al-Umayyah, from the Bani al-Abbas who are dead and buried in the ground. Who says I love Harun or Ma'mun or Mansur or Mutawakkil? Of course I don't. La'natullahi alayhim ajma'een. The question is this though, who are the enemies of my Imam then? Because if I have love for them in my heart, that's where it gets problematic for me. The hadith says, tell them, don't dress like my enemies. Don't eat what my enemies eat. Don't resemble my enemies. Otherwise they'll become like them. They will become my enemies. And so when I ask those that perpetrate genocides and massacres against the Shia and against the Muslim Ummah today, who is your enemy? That's where I find out who my heart needs to be aligned with. While their crimes make it evident that I cannot be aligned with them. Isa alayhi salam is with his Hawariyun, with some of his disciples and companions, and they're walking through an area and they find some bodies littered on the ground. And they see these bodies. The disciples are curious and they say, Ya Ruh Allah, tell us, what's the story? We would like to know why these bodies are left here unburied. At that moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires Nabi Isa. There's a call that's made to Nabi Isa saying that, Ya Ruh Allah, call on them. And so Isa alayhi salam calls on them and says, Ya Ahl al-Qarya. And they all respond and say, Labbayka Ya Ruh Allah. Yes sir, yes Isa, what is it? How can we be of service? And he says, they want to know your story. What's your story? They respond and they say that, أصبحنا في العافية, that we started our day and we woke up, we lived in a life where we had comforts, luxury, we were chilling. وبتنا في الحاوية, we woke up في عافية, comforts, but when we were taken from this world, we ended up in Hawiya. And so they asked, Isa alayhi salam says, Qala, wa mal Hawiya? Where'd you end up? Explain. He said, we ended up in a place where we have biharun min nar. There are seas that are made of fire. Inside those seas of fire, we have jibalun min nar. There are mountains made of fire. Oh, this is a big deal. What's going on over here? How'd you end up over here? What's the story of this? And they responded saying there are two things that led us here. Number one was hubbud dunya. We had love of the dunya in our hearts. And number two, ibadatul tawaghit. And we obeyed the tyrants of our time. These two things led us to the fire. And both of them are the same thing. Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam in the dua Abu Hamza says, Sayyidi, akhrij hubbad dunya min qalbi. Remove the love of the world from my heart. Why? Remember that thing that we said about mawadda and how there can only be one thing in the heart? Imam as-Sajjad alayhi salam says, if you remove the love of the world from my heart, then wajma' bayni wa bayna al-Mustafa wa alih. If you remove the love of the world from my heart, only then can the love of Muhammad and al-Muhammad enter my heart. Recite the salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
What is it that caused these people to end up in this state? Those Ahlul Qaryah. One was, instead of the love of Allah and His disciples and His representatives, Allah's messengers, Allah's awliya, they had love for the world and that which distracted them from Allah. Which is the same thing as number two, the ibadah of the tawaghit. And they obeyed the tyrants of their times, the bullies of their times, the aggressive, suppressive, oppressive authorities that ran their cities. Those tyrants that instead of resisting them and speaking back to them and telling them أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتِ, instead they fell in love with them. Falling in love with other than Allah is very dangerous and it's not okay. How do we know? Let's take an example of one of our ulama. There was a man by the name of Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum. In the late 18th century, meaning in 1790 something, he passed away. He was either born in Najaf or buried in Najaf. But of course he was Iranian and he was in Burujerd. Burujerd at that time, under one of the dynasties, either the Zand dynasty, perhaps. Allama Bahrul Ulum was living in Burujerd, and of course these dynasties before the Islamic Revolution, each and every one of them had their own forms of oppression and injustices. None of them were clean dynasties. And so at that time in Burujerd there was a governor, there was a hakim. And so that hakim had come to see the father of Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum, Sayyid Murtada Tabatabai. He came to see his father. When he came into the home to pay a visit to this scholar, at that time Allama Bahrul Ulum is only a child. And so perhaps the governor had placed his hand on the head of Allama Bahrul Ulum. And in some way, shape or form, he expressed love to this child. And he respected the child. When this hakim had left the house, Sayyid Mahdi goes to his father and says, "Oh my father, take me out of this city and allow me to go live somewhere else. Make us migrate from this place and not return." He says, "Oh my son, why? What has happened that you want to leave Burujerd?" He is saying that I fear destruction here. I fear halaka. Why? What's going to happen in Burujerd that you'll be destroyed? He says, ever since that moment that hakim showed me some love, I feel in my heart that I'm inclined towards him, and I know that anyone who's inclined towards the taghut will be destroyed. Not that I worship him or I serve him or I bring anything for him, either to eat or a pen for him to write. No, if in my heart I'm inclined towards the enemy of Allah, that brings about my destruction. I will not have husnul aqibah. When I leave this world, I will not leave as one of those that are counted as being under the banner of the wilayah of the Imam of my time. There is a dichotomy. Should I tell you a story? It's not a night of laughter, but I'll tell you the story anyway. Just don't laugh. After the Islamic Revolution, there was a scholar that had sat on the bus. He wanted to go from one city to another. And all of a sudden, next to him, this girl came and sat down. And she wasn't dressed properly. And she was, sorry, this was before the Islamic Revolution, my apologies. Before the Islamic Revolution, this scholar had sat on the bus and he wanted to go to another city, and some girl had come and sat next to him, and she wasn't dressed properly. Perhaps she had, cake-faced herself, maybe she was wearing a miniskirt, I don't know. But it seemed really odd now that this scholar in his clerical garb is sitting next to a girl who's dressed like this. And now he's thinking to himself, what am I supposed to do? I can't look at her. This is the only seat on the bus. I can't get up and move because there's nowhere to go. What do I do? And so he turns himself towards the window and he doesn't look at her. So I'm not going to look at her. I'm just going to, if anyone walks by, they won't think that we're together. Well, imagine if the people think this is my daughter, or worse. So he turns away. And so the man walks down the aisle to collect the fares, and one by one he's collecting the fare of this bus ride. up until he reaches where the scholar is sitting. So the scholar, like this, he puts out his cash and he wants to pay the man. And the man says, Hajava, it's been taken care of. He goes, what? What do you mean it's been taken care of? He says, yes, this young girl over here, she's paid for you. When he saw that, he was turned this way towards the window. He kind of turned a little bit and he said, thank you very much. It was very nice of you. No, you didn't have to. And then she began speaking to him. And he thought to himself, wow, what a well-mannered girl. And he kind of turned a little bit this way. And they continued the conversation until he realized, this is a great conversation that we're having. She's so well-mannered and so polite. This is a really great hamsafar and companion to have on the bus. And now he turned all the way this way. And so one of the lessons that we take is good akhlaq can make a person turn around 180 degrees. But the lesson that we want to take is that sometimes when someone does ihsan and good to us, we begin to justify and turn a blind eye to their sins. That yes, that Hakim had placed his hand on the head of Allama Bahrul Ulum, but it takes someone very strong will to be able to say, no matter what good you do to me, no matter what benefits you offer me, I don't abandon my principles and ideals, and I definitely don't abandon the Imam of my time. It's such a nice offer that Shimr is making. Such a nice offer. He's saying, hey, we're basically cousins. Abbas, Ja'far, Uthman, all of the children of my relative, all the sons of al-Banin. Why don't you go and live a nice life of luxury, a life of comfort? You can chill. You don't need to stay here in this hot desert, thirsty. Is there going to be a war? You're going to get killed. There's no need. Abbas alayhi salam says, this isn't ihsan that you're doing to me. Ihsan to me is someone who assists me in aiding the Imam of my time. I don't abandon my principles for your offer of luxury and comfort. Sometimes we find that our governments offer us certain benefits. In Farsi we call it namakgir. When you give someone something, he's bound to not oppose you and rebel against you because he feels indebted to you. This is why in that story where the angels come to the house of Ibrahim alayhi salam and they don't eat, Ibrahim is a bit concerned. Because typically if you feed someone, you feed your guest, he's not going to harm you. And so now that he sees that they're not eating my food, he worries that perhaps they're here to harm me. Someone who's eating from my dastakhan, my sofre, who's eating from my food spread, he's not going to harm me. So if they don't eat from that which I offer them, it's probably because he's out to get me. When we eat from the food spread of the tawaghit, it's natural that we become addicted to them and attached to them. And then when someone comes and says, hey, it might be wajib for you to do hijrah, we say, from where? This is my home. Oh, Canada, my home and native land. As if it's your native land. The attachment that we have is an attachment to those that have done good to us. So we'll say, what a country we live in. What a government we have. I'll never forget in 2015, it was perhaps the night of, I don't know, the 7th of Muharram, the 6th of Muharram. It was in the middle of the first Ashr of Muharram. We were all there from Majlis wearing black. That fall, maybe some of you remember, there was a Q&A that they had with one of the scholars in one of these centers here in Toronto. And one of the individuals from the youth group took the mic and said, Sheikh, sorry to interrupt. I just want to make an announcement that Justin Trudeau has won the election. And they cheered in the masjid while wearing black after crying for Ashura. They cheered for a taghut. I'm not talking about long history in the past or some other community that you don't know of. Here, that people who come and say that inni silmun liman salamakum wa inni harbun liman harabakum assume that this only applies to the love of Zuhair and Habib and the hatred of Harmala and Shimr. If they continued reading the line of the ziyarah, they would see that the ziyarah continues to say what? Ila yawmil qiyamah, that my hatred for the enemies of Allah and my love for the awliya of Allah doesn't stop on the 10th of Muharram 61 Hijri. This battle continues till the Day of Judgment. Someone who says that I have love in my heart for both Allah and His awliya, as well as these other respectable individuals who are serving us in this government, you're mistaken. Your love cannot be in two places at once. What is the first condition to allowing the love of the Ahlul Bayt to enter into our hearts? First we say, La ilaha. Then we say, Illallah. First I empty the Kaaba of all of the idols. Amirul Mu'mineen sits on the shoulders of Rasulullah. One by one, every idol that they find, they demolish it. And then we'll go for Hajj and walk around this structure, now that it's been purified from any stain of shirk. While your heart is still inclined towards the idols of the time, how is it that you can claim Tawheed? You're claiming to be a servant of Allah while you're actually a servant of the dollar, or of the manager, or of the prime minister. It doesn't work that way. The riwayah says that إِنَّ بَنِي أُمَيَّةَ أُطْلِقُوا لِلنَّاسِ تَعْلِيمَ الْإِيمَانِ وَلَمْ أُطْلِقُوا تَعْلِيمَ الشِّرْكِ. The Bani Umayyah would allow for the education and the teaching of Iman, but they wouldn't allow for shirk to be taught. Why? Because if the people came to understand what shirk was, they would realize that the caliph of the time is the biggest mushrik. Had they learned about shirk, they would realize that they themselves have been living as mushrikeen in the service of the enemies of Allah. That if Iman is Iman and shirk is what you're claiming it is, then what other description can I have of this current government that I live in? Whether it's the Bani Umayyah or the Al Marwan or the Bani Abbas or these democratic structures that you see around you today, other than a system of shirk. You place someone else in charge other than Allah. Do we realize this or no? It's the night of Ashura. When do you want to realize if not tonight? How are you going to give bay'ah to the Imam of your time, to the Hussain of your time, if you haven't recognized whether or not you have love for the Yazid of your time? Who is this Yazid? Who is this Yazid today that sometimes we're attached to? Do you know why we're attached to them? Question number 4. How is it that we can rid our societies of the love of other than Allah? By reminding them who the enemies of Allah really are. Sometimes we forget, and if we don't remind the people, then they will definitely forget, and they'll write it off as just being history. Oh, that was in the past. Have you heard those white supremacists who say, you keep bringing up slavery, that was a long time ago. If we don't remind you, you're going to forget what happened and what misery you brought upon those people. The effects of which we still see today. We need to remind you. We need to remind you that about 250,000 people were affected and killed from the atomic bombs that you dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We need to remind you, we need to remind the people of the Agent Orange that they spilled on the rice fields in Vietnam. Till today the people are affected by it. We need to remind the people that 500,000 Iraqis were killed since the invasion in 2003. We need to remind the people, because if we don't remind them, they're gonna forget that these are the same individuals that funded, supported, and perpetrated a 2 to 3 year long genocide in Gaza. If we don't say it, no one will say it for us, and we will forget. We will forget the 168 daughters of ours in Minab. We must say it out loud. We must remind ourselves, La'natullahi alayh, La'natullahi alayh, La'natullahi alayh. No one else will say it for us. They wanted to censor our La'an of Yazid. That one. Can you imagine? They wanted to say that Yazid was the caliph and that Abi Abdullah shouldn't have rebelled. They're trying to pacify you, coax you, lull you into sleep. Don't listen to the lullaby. Sing louder. Sing louder with your chants of death and destruction to a system that suppresses us and prevents us from living freely under the banner of Tawheed. This is what Tawheed is. La ilaha illallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu waliyul ladina amanu. Yukhrijuhum min al-dhulumati ila al-nur. Not that He is your wali and you can stay in the dhulumat. The moment you come under the wilayah of Allah, you must then definitely enter into the light. Someone was claiming to be under the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and yet he has love in his heart for the Ibn Muljam of his time. In what way is he the lover of Amir al-Mu'mineen? How do we rid the love of other than Allah from our societies, from our brothers and sisters? We remind them of who they are. Don't be afraid that they call you extreme. Is it extreme to say that I still feel hurt that they bombed hospitals in Gaza and the infants who were left under the rubble were never found? Does that bother you that I keep bringing it up? Because I think it bothered the mothers a little bit more. It didn't bother you, we recited the Masaib of Ali Asghar. When I tell you that it happened today, all of a sudden you don't want to hear about it. It's easier to mourn the past than to face responsibility and take on the duty and roll up your sleeves for what you're seeing today in the Karbala of today. Otherwise, why do you have an imam for every era? Every era has an imam because in every era there's a Karbala for the Hussaini camp and the Yazidi camp. Where's your Karbala today? You have a Karbala in your personal lives, in your family life, in your societal life, and in the Ummah as well. Have you identified who the Yazids are? Is a Yazid that exists in the soul? Is a Yazid that's out there in the world as well? Have we identified them? Or are we hiding them away out of fear that we might lose them? You know why certain celebrities don't speak out against America ever? Some of them just want the visa. They want the blue passport. They want the perks. They want to visit the White House. They want to be front news, headlines. It feels really good when you're in, but you're just the top slave, that's it. But you know what, it's better to be the top slave than to be out on the streets. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought us Islam to free us from the shackles of the fear of the Taghut. And say if you're going to be under anyone's slavery, then be a slave of Allah. وَذْكُرْ عَبْدَنَا. When Allah describes the Anbiya, He says, this is my servant. You know what makes him so special and free? That he only serves me, nobody else. When it comes to you guys, he's a lion. The riwayah says that man khaf Allah, the one that fears Allah only, Allah will make everyone else fear Him. However, if he doesn't fear Allah, man lam yakhif Allah, if he doesn't fear Allah, Allah will make him fear everything. What are we scared of? It's the night of Ashura. If you won't ask the question tonight, I don't know when you're going to ask the question. What are we scared of? Who scares us? Who's the one that plays with our heartstrings and like a puppet on a string tells us where to go and what to do and what to say? What's the reason for why we stay away from mentioning the awliya of Allah and stay away from condemning the a'da Allah? Why? In whose submission and in whose bay'ah are we on the night of Ashura? And the night of Ashura comes and they say, just recite the fada'il and the masa'ib. One of the biggest masa'ib of the Ahlul Bayt is that they only recited fada'il and masa'ib maybe. That all they would ever say is that Aliyun ma'al haq. But did you ever side with haq or did you just say it? Trust me, when they would recite the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen in front of Muawiyah cried. And he said, yes, beshak, this is exactly how Ali was. And that same Muawiyah is the murderer of Ali and Al-Hassan. That same Muawiyah went to war against two of our imams. But when it came to the fada'il, beshak, beshak. Who do we really love? If we don't clarify this for ourselves and for our brothers and sisters, then as Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum said, we fear our own destruction here. This doesn't mean you need to get up and leave, but it does mean that we need a self-check. And what better time than the night of Ashura to check ourselves, to find out in whose bay'ah are we tonight? Who do we truly love? Because the principle of Tawheed is that you don't worship other than Allah, not that you worship Allah and others as well. On the night of Ashura, we remember those individuals that said, I'm prepared to leave everything for the sake of Hussain. There was a man that wasn't even part of the caravan of Abi Abdullah. He would run from Hussain and Hussain would chase him. Up until they got to a point where they stopped at the same time, and Abu Abdullah sent a messenger. And he says, Zuhair, Hussain is calling you. Zuhair is worried now. He doesn't want to see Abu Abdullah. He knows what he's going to say. He goes to see Hussain. When he goes to see the Imam, we don't know what transpired between them. But when he came back, he tells his wife, I have divorced you. All of my possessions are for you to take. Get out of here. You do whatever you want. I'm going with my master. If yesterday I had love for any of these possessions, if I had love for you independent of Allah, if I had love for anything independent of Allah, today I'm doing tawbah and saying I'm only at the service of the Imam of my time, no one else. They could have said that the roads are closed and blocked off. But the moment the letter reached the hands of Habib ibn Madahir, and he realized that his master is a gharib in Karbala, he says, by any means necessary, I will make my way to the sands of Karbala to defend the Imam of my time. Safety, is that what you said? Wealth, is that what you said? Sorry, maybe I misheard you. Were you talking about social reputation? That with your white beard you might be a somebody in Kufa. I'm a nobody if the Imam doesn't say that I'm a somebody. What's my excuse? Whose salt and whose rice have I been eating all my life that I'm not willing to bite the hand that feeds me? On the night of Ashura, on a night like tonight, none of the companions are worried about what they've left behind. Whoever ends up staying, he knows what's going to happen tomorrow, and yet he's elated, he's overjoyed. Of course, why wouldn't he be? Why wouldn't he be? If tonight I came and told you that all of your azadari and all of your majalis have all been accepted by Sahib al-Zaman, he has accepted from you, and he has accepted that you die in his way as well, such that when they raise you to the heavens, you will go as a martyr of Sahib al-Zaman. Would you not feel happy that you've been accepted, and that all of your efforts have paid off? Fuztu wa Rabbil Kaaba, of course. And so when we see that the companions are happy on the night of Ashura, it's not that they're mocking Abi Abdullah. They're not laughing at his loneliness. They're saying, Ya Abu Abdullah, how I wish this night could last forever and we could remain with you like this forever, knowing that tomorrow it's guaranteed that we will be shuhada in the riqab of Hussain. Tomorrow they will write our names as Assalamu alaykum ya ansar Abi Abdullah. بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم. This line of the ziyarah is not for the ma'sumin. طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم is for the ashab of Hussain. You lived honorable lives, you were pure and purified, such that when they placed you in the ground, you gave honor and purity to the ground that you were buried in. Who is this about? The one that didn't have love for the Taghut, but had true love for Hussain. Let our tears tonight wash away the stains of the love that we used to have for other than the Imam. And let's reorient our hearts tonight back towards the Hussain of today. Find the camp of Abi Abdullah today and only sit under that tent and nobody else's. This is a real responsibility that we have. The ashab took it very seriously. Zuhair ibn Qayn, he looks at Abi Abdullah and he's like, before I wasn't with you, I just joined you. It seems that it's only been 15 to 20 days that Zuhair has joined the caravan. And now that he's here, he's saying, Ya Abu Abdullah, what a shame that for so long I was away from you and now it's all going to end. When I could have lived a longer life at your service, such that when I left this world, I could have a long track record of servitude to my Imam. How I wish that I could have done this more than once. And so Zuhair says this, he says, Ya Abu Abdullah, had I known that I would be killed, and then my body cut to pieces, and then they were to be burnt and turned to ash and scattered in the wind, and then they would bring me back to life so I could defend you, and this process would repeat again and again 1,000 times. Ya Abu Abdullah, I would never leave you, such that you're asking me tonight to go and chase my comfort and luxury again. I've already given away my possessions. Tonight we're saying, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, There is no day like the day of Ashura. And there's nothing that the enemies of today can do to us that they didn't do to Abi Abdullah on the 10th of Muharram. Is there any worse death than the death of Hussain on that day? Such that what the maqatil write, we don't even recite on these manabir. On the pulpits, we don't speak about what actually transpired on the day of Ashura because you would die out of grief. We're wondering, we're astonished. How did Zainab live after Ashura? Everyone that saw the day of Ashura wasn't the same afterwards. And yet we speak about the Masa'ib like it's easy. No, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, we bear witness. We know there is no day. A'adham raziyya wa a'adham musiba is the day of Ashura. Now that I've seen Ashura in front of me, how is it that I can fear any torment or death when I'm in your path? Allow me to join the ranks of Akbar and Qasim. On the night of Ashura, everyone is offered an escape route to leave. Are we those that take the escape routes? Are we those that will say, Ya Abu Abdullah, if you permit me, I would like to leave? There was a man by the name of the Hawk, and he was guarding the tents from the back. The Hawk saw the entire day of Ashura. He lives long enough to tell the story. And he says, I saw that the three-pronged arrow had struck the neck of Ali Asghar. How does he live long enough to tell the story? After he saw everything. He saw the broken back of my master when he came back hazinan munkasira. And he says, Sayyidi Mawla ya Abu Abdullah, you already took your bay'ah back and you said if it's not looking like it's in our favor that I can leave, do you permit me to get going then? Can you imagine? This is a man that prepared his escape route to leave Karbala and abandon the Imam of his time. Can you believe that there are individuals who are waiting with an escape hole ready to jump into to save their dunya at the expense of their Imam, and then we wonder why is it that the Imam doesn't come? Tonight is the night of Faraj. Tonight is the night to pray for the Faraj. Tonight is the night of the 15th of Sha'ban for us both, the istijaba of dua. And the greatest dua that we have is the coming of our Master. Ya Sahib al-Zaman, I know up until this moment I had the love of other than you in my heart. Tonight I would like to change. I'm tired. I'm tired of this. For how long will I be in the service of Shimr and Harmala while I know who they are and I know who you are? For how long will I recognize you but not submit to you? For how long will all of the companions go to Karbala without me while I sit in Kufa? Or worse, I end up in Karbala but on the wrong side. The night of Ashura needs to happen. The 9th has to come and go so that when we get to the 10th, something special can happen. What's so special about the 10th of Muharram? There were individuals that up until the 10th weren't with Hussain. They had love for other than Hussain. But on the day of Ashura, they came to their beloved. How? Not through their words. He falls at the feet of Abi Abdullah and he says, Halli min tawbah. Ya Abu Abdullah, I am the one that brought you here. I cut off the furat from you. I am the one that left your sakina thirsty. Is there any tawbah for her? This is the night that we've come to. This is the night of tawbah. This is the night to say, Astaghfirullah. Yesterday, I had the love of other than the Imam in my heart. I was attached to the Western governments and their societies and ideologies. But tonight, I want to say, Labbaika ya Abu Abdullah, Labbaika ya Mahdi. This is where I am on the night of Ashura. It's a big night tonight. If we spoke only about this night, we would reach the morning and wouldn't have finished the musibah of tonight. What all transpired on the night of Ashura. What a heavy night it is. That it's the last night that the women and children will sleep in peace. What a night that when Sakina goes to sleep, she has Qamar Munir of the Bani Hashim watching over her. What a night it is that her older brother Ali Akbar is watching over her. That tonight, if they needed to mount a camel or a horse, they would have an array of selection to mount them on the horse. But a day will come that when they sit on the camels, there will only be na-mahram who are with them. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله أيها الشهيد بكربلاء أتشانا Everyone has gone to the Maidan. Everyone has gone. A moment comes when they see Abu Abdullah is returning to the tents. The Maqtal says that my master is Hazinan Munkasira. He's a broken man this time, and he's saying, Al-an Inkasara Dhahri. Now my back is broken. He enters into the tent of Abi Fadl. When he goes into the tent and he brings down the pole, all of the ladies know if Abbas will not return, we must get prepared for Sham. Everyone has gone to the Maidan. Whoever has gone has not returned. Abu Abdullah himself now enters into the battlefield and he's calling out, هل من ضاب يضب على حرم رسول الله? Is there anyone that will defend these women of the Ahl al-Bayt? That if I go, who will protect Zainab? All of a sudden from the tents there's a commotion. Abu Abdullah runs back into the tents. What has happened? And he sees one by one the ladies are passing an infant to one another. Ya Abu Abdullah, do you see how pale your Asghar has become? Do you see sometimes he opens his mouth, sometimes he closes it. There's no milk left for your Asghar, Ya Abu Abdullah. Abu Abdullah takes Asghar into his hands. I don't know if in this moment he's made his decision or not. When he leaves the tent, does Rabab have one last chance to see Asghar or no? My brothers, my sisters, when a mother wakes up in the morning, her first concern is, where is my child? Where is my infant? From now on, the cradle of Rabab will be empty. Abu Abdullah enters into the Maidan. This is the night of Bab al-Hawaj. He enters into the Maidan and his Abba is covering his infant. The enemies don't know what Abi Abdullah has brought. Some of them are saying, look, Hussain has brought the Quran with him. That some are saying, look, Abu Abdullah is tired. Look, he looks defeated. All of a sudden Abu Abdullah removes his cloak and he places his infant on the sand and he calls out, Ya ayyuhal qawm, in lam tarhamuni farhamu hadha ar-radi. If you won't have mercy on me, then at least have mercy on my infant. Why? أما ترونه كيف يتلظى عطشا? Do you know what يتلظى means? Abu Abdullah is saying, don't you see how my Asghar, like a fish out of water, he's opening his mouth, he's closing his mouth. Do you know what this means? When you take a fish out of water for too long, even if you throw it back in the water, it will still die. He's saying, oh people, even if you feed my Asghar, it's to no avail. I'm asking you, would you like to save yourselves on the day of judgment or no? At least you can tell Zahra, we fed his infant on Ashura. There was a man in Kuwait when he wanted to enter into the country. One of the border men was a staunch Wahhabi, and he was bothering the Shia. The man made a tawassul. He said, Ya Abu Abdullah, this man is bothering me for being Shia. Punish him, bother him back. Abu Abdullah responded to him in a dream, and he said, oh man, I can't punish this man. He says, why? He's not your Shia. He says, no, but this man, one day he was walking next to the Furat. As he was looking at the water, there were tears that welled up in his eyes. And he started to say to himself, what would have happened had they given Asghar a little bit of water? It's the night of Bab al-Hawaj. Abu Abdullah has placed his Asghar on the sand. Slowly the hearts of the enemies are breaking. What will happen if we feed his infant? Maybe one of them was saying, give him to me, I will take him far away. Maybe like the mother of Musa, I'll place him in the Furat so he can float away to safety. What do we have to do with this infant today? Abu Abdullah picks up the 6-month-old. I'll say it softly, the women are bothered, I know. The riwayah says, Sahmin Harmala takes a 3-pronged arrow. Some of us don't know what this means. The 3-pronged arrow has one edge at the front, which is what goes into the body. Then it has 2 sides. These other 2 spots of the arrow, when the arrow is in, when you pull the arrow out, there are another 2 blows to the body. This is 3 prongs. The riwayah says, Harmala comes to Umar ibn Sa'd, and he says, Mawlaya ya Amir, tell me what shall I do? Umar ibn Sa'd says, finish this mutiny before they rebel against us. Harmala asks a question, and he says, Ya ayyuhal Amir, which one do you want me to strike? The father or the baby? La ilaha illallah. Where else have you heard this sentence? She came running out of the home, and she held on to the Aba of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he said, Qunfud, strike her. So she lets go of Ali, and Qunfud says, which one shall I strike? Do I strike Ali, or do I strike Zahra? Harmala says, which one do I strike? Do I strike Hussain, or do I strike his baby? It's the night of Ashura. Umar ibn Sa'd responded, La'natullahi alayhi. He says, do you see that white spot under the neck of the baby?